Have you heard the expression or the term a batch of something?
Like a batch of cookies?
Okay, so you stole exactly what I was talking about. So yes, a batch of cookies.
I'm sorry. What do you want me to do? I got this wondrous ESP property in my brain.
Either that or you were looking at my computer screen, one or the other. But yes, a batch of cookies means a group or collection of something that's produced all at one time. So a batch of cookies is my favorite type of batch.
Okay, well, we're over here talking cookies and entrepreneurship. I guess we're going to get a little bit more in depth.
I suppose so.
Well, let's go.
This is Mikel-Claire.
And this is Trey.
And we are the couple of entrepreneurs. We're here to share with you our journey of successes and setbacks as we enter the world of entrepreneurship now that we no longer have 9-to-5s due to the new normal of the world and the pandemic.
Join us as we race the clock to start earning money, gain consistency, and overcome self-doubts and uncertainty as we search for our voices and obtain personal and financial growth.
All right, so you had me at cookies. What's up with this batch stuff you talking about?
I think what we're talking about right now is how to batch your work or produce a collection or group of something.
Oh, you're talking about work. I thought we were talking about cookies.
Well, you can eat cookies while you work. How about that? But how to create a group or a collection of something in order to like save yourself time. How about that? You love time and money.
I do.
So saving yourself time by batching your work.
Guess that makes us a couple of batches.
I knew you were going to do that. I was hoping you didn't, but we're here now. So let's move on.
Yes, I am a huge fan of batch work. I didn't really used to use it a whole lot, but now it's starting to become like a staple of the things that we do. A perfect example, in case you don't know regarding our podcast, is that we have started batching some of these episodes. So initially when we first started doing the podcast, we would do one episode per day. And that's great and cool and all, but you do get to a point where the monotony of it can sort of kind of like weigh on you a little bit. It chews up a lot of time sometimes. So we had just brought up the idea and I was like, how about we do as many of these as we can on one day and then free up the time of the weekday?
Well, let me say first, though, I feel like initially it's extremely important for you to do it every day because it leads to consistency. So definitely don't take that part out because it's a learning curve. There's things that you learn on a day-to-day basis, and it just really allows you to, like I said, gain the consistency of it. So don't cut that part out.
No, I'm so happy that you said that because that is very true. We didn't really start our batch episodes until like right around episode like maybe 26, 27, somewhere around in there. And then we started batching the episodes, started doing 5 episodes per Saturday morning. And then during the weekday, we could spend less time just doing some small, simple editing. And it gave us a lot more time than I thought actually during the weekday. Typically when we would do some of our shows, it would be about an hour and a half every single day, everything from coming up with the idea to doing the show to doing the editing. Now each of us will do one show as far as editing, and it takes roughly about 45 minutes per show to kind of do some of the editing, and it just frees a tremendous amount of time. And that's just with, the podcast. You can really get a good appreciation of what batching your work can do with other aspects of your business. Is there anything that you can think of just off the top of your head where batching your work can help with your productivity?
I don't do this currently, but something that I'm thinking about doing, and I know that it's a big benefit to a lot of people, is if you batch like your posts. So if you batch like an Instagram post or Facebook ads, things like that. So just create a bunch of content, and then that way you can either schedule a future date for them to be posted, or you can kind of post them all at one time, or, but we're talking about batching. So you kind of want to roll them out over time. So I think that that's a great one to batch. So anything really related to content, I think is a big one. But obviously we talked about the podcast and Instagram and Facebook. But I know for you, batching sometimes with like YouTube is also a great benefit.
I like the creative process of actually creating things. Doing editing, I'm not a huge fan of, and remembering scheduling and doing tags and keywords and all that other stuff that goes along with, let's just say, YouTube, for example, is not really my neck of the woods. It's not my cup of tea. And it breaks up the creative process as well, because you do an episode and then you got to do keywords and descriptions and posting schedules and all that, and then when you try to get back into that creative frame of mind again, you're kind of taken out of the zone. Whereas when I batch creative processes like videos, I'm in that same rhythm, I'm in that same flow of giving information, so it just saves my creative process. Is there anything in the future that you're considering batching, and what do you hope to get out of it if you do?
I'm going to backtrack a little bit for what you just said, because for me, it's interesting. And I don't batch a lot of things. I am interested in kind of maybe doing that. And I think it's for you, you said, it keeps you in a creative mindset and a creative energy. I think for me, sometimes I'm learning that if I don't have the necessary energy to maintain however long the batching may take, it can kind of sometimes be a little bit of a struggle. So I think, for me, morning times, I'm typically at my freshest. The later in the day that it gets, not so much so. So for me, I have to be mindful of that if I do decide to batch more things, because I'm not always in the right mindset to do so. So I have to keep that in the forefront. And then the question you asked me, I've already forgotten. I think it had to do something with...
If you were going to batch, what would you batch?
Any kind of social media post, be it Facebook, Instagram, ads, those type of things. I like to have like a group of content that I have available to me so that I can just roll them out as needed versus creating them on the fly. So I think that that's important and necessary, because then you have like a go-to pool of things, and then you don't just have to create one off the top of your head every single time that it's needed. Right. Other than your YouTube content, is there anything, and this podcast, of course, is there anything that you hope to batch or looking to batch in the near future?
We actually both had an experience of doing batching and didn't realize that's exactly what we were doing. And that is dealing with creating our email marketing content. We batched like the first 7 or 8 emails regarding some of the products and services that we offer, and just got it over with. It kind of saved time instead of having to come up every single day with a brand new email. Now, there are other email sequences that can continue on indefinitely, and a lot of times in the business, those are called Seinfeld email sequences. That's a whole different conversation, but they keep going on and on and on and on. But I think many people even batch that. Like, they'll just take a day and they'll write out like 20 emails, and then they'll put it in their automation system, and then that's the batch work of emails that they'll have to do for the month, and it's all done in a day. They just took the uncomfortableness of having to do all of that work in one day instead of just dragging it out for weeks on end.
So what, if any, are the downsides of batching work?
I think there's a few. The more batch work you do, the more it's kind of revealed. One, it takes a lot of time for that short period of time. For me, in order to batch some of the videos that I would have to make, we're talking, anywhere between 3, 4, 5 hours of doing one thing all day. For our podcast, it's roughly about 2.5 hours between coming up with the content, making the notes, and then actually recording it. You got to keep in mind, our shows average around 15 minutes per batch, and we do like 5 of those. So, that's an hour and 15 minutes of actual real time of being recorded. And that's not even including all the research and everything else. So it just sucks up a big chunk of time. But you think about it in terms of, I'd rather do it now than spread it out throughout a week and have to deal with the whole mindset and headache of dealing with it every single day. You just kind of all get it done at once. Another big problem that comes with batching is that the frame of mind that you're in is what's going to continue through that whole batch. And how that can be detrimental is that if you're not in a good mood and you're not in the right frame of mind, then it's not going to affect just one piece of work. It's going to affect all of the pieces of work. And that frame of mind that you have, be it positive or negative, is going to be the constant until that batch work is done. So you have to really keep in mind, especially when you're doing something creative, what your mind state is when you're doing all of this batch work.
I think another thing to consider is also, like I had mentioned, the focus. Not everybody is able to focus for long periods of time, and I think that can be somewhat difficult when you're looking into batching different projects and things that you're working on. So I need, you know your own degree of focus and ability to do so. So just kind of keep that in mind as well when you plan out your tasks.
That's a major issue that you brought up, and I'm happy that you did, because your fatigue is going to affect your work. Not only can it affect the creative process, it can affect the productivity of that process, because if you give shoddy work because you're tired, then you have to live with that batch work. The first time I started really dealing with batch work regarding internet style, laptop lifestyle businesses, a friend of mine has a YouTube page, and when I would help him out when it came to creating content, we would do batch work of, 20, 30 YouTube episodes, and each one of those is anywhere between 20 to 30 minutes long. And we would literally spend 48, almost straight hours outside of sleep just doing content. And it's great to get it all done, and then you've got enough content for the next month and a half. But then we were reaching points where fatigue crept in because you're a human being, and it didn't affect just one episode. It would affect 6 or 7 straight until we went out and got coffee or whatever. So you have to be really careful with your energy level, your creativity level when you're doing batch work, because it's going to last for an extended period of time, and nobody wants to recreate all of that work all over again.
Well, yeah. So I think, you in general, yourself, so you can kind of determine when it's best to do that. Like if you're a morning person or an evening person, or if you can only do maybe 2 pieces of content versus trying to get 8 pieces of content done at one time. So whatever is going to be of benefit for you and what it is that you're trying to do, I think you can kind of weigh that out and then just go from there.
Do you have any other tips and tricks or advice regarding batch work, even from the little bit that we've done regarding the podcast? Because we're just human, sometimes, you might not be feeling it that particular day. I know we had our very first day of batch work. I just really wasn't in that kind of mood. And I could tell when I was editing some of the podcasts when we got done, and it was okay, mental note. I have to be a little bit more leery of where my mental space is regarding this batch work. Has there anything regarding the batch work in this show that has kind of revealed itself to you? Is just maybe, oh, okay, well, there's that.
The time that it takes and kind of the toll that it takes, I don't think I realized the amount of energy that it would take in order to maintain for such a long amount of time. And I think that there is a certain space that someone needs to be in order to create exactly what it is maybe that they're looking for or looking to create. So I think that that's something to keep in mind, because the energy level and the mindset and being able to have endurance, it's something you really got to think about before you even consider it.
I know that there is a difference between doing batch work with yourself and doing batch work with a partner. When you're doing batch work with yourself, you kind of can figure out what you are and aren't able to do, and if it's the best decision to do that batch work then and there. Whereas if you're doing batch work with a team or with a partner, I've done batch work with you, and I've done batch work with another colleague of mine as well, you have to bend some. It's a give and take kind of thing, because there's not always going to be an ideal time where everybody's, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being, the most enthusiastic, that everybody's going to be there. You're dealing with human beings, and some days you're feeling like a 4, and your partner might be, at an 11. But you just have to keep in mind, it's okay, I am aware that I might not be in the best of moods, but I have to at least give it my all, or at least let my partner know, so that, maybe he can or she can add an additional amount of energy to make up for where I might be falling off at. It's like playing jazz, with somebody. You kind of got to feed off of them and see if the music that they're creating, if you're vibing with it, if that makes sense. So yeah, just knowing who you're working with and how that affects the massive amount of work that you're about to get done in a very short period of time. There is one more other small piece of batch work that I have recognized as well. And even though we haven't really bumped into this when I've done batch work before, is the importance of taking breaks. As much as we all want to just sit there and do like 8 straight hours just to get it over with real quick, you just can't do that. You shouldn't, Take moments to pause, take a walk, get a breath of fresh air. If you're working with somebody else, asking your partner, how they feel, areas that could be corrected, if there's been like an artistic disconnect, all that kind of stuff. It is important that if you're going to do long periods of batch work, that you have to be aware of your partner, of yourself, and the amount of time that you're using and if it's even working.
Well, I think we had talked about this before in another episode as well, like the importance of like making sure as far as like that you've had food to eat, that you've used the restroom, that you've had enough water, that you've kind of had the rest that you need in order to have the mental capacity to do what you need to do. So I think like taking all of those things into consideration, and maybe, if you've scheduled it for that Saturday and all of those things or 95% of those things aren't in tune, then maybe schedule for another day. I mean, so I think that that's important too, to kind of listen to yourself and just kind of make adjustments as needed.
You've been listening to a couple of batches. This is one of your hosts, Trey Murphy. I'm sitting here with the amazing and beautiful Mikel-Claire, and we are the couple of entrepreneurs. Do yourself and ourselves a huge favor and smash that subscribe button. Make sure you tell everybody out there that out there in the internet world that we're out here talking entrepreneurship, building businesses, ways to streamline our businesses through methods such as batch work. Thank you so much for being a part of our family and taking the time to listen to us.
I'm ready for my batch of cookies now.
Oh, well, let's get this batch work going. And on that note, peace out.